The night the Nine-Tails attacked Konoha was supposed to be just another tragedy in a long line of tragedy for the Hidden Leaf Village. Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, stood on top of the toad boss, Gamabunta, with his newborn son in his arm, preparing to do the one thing no father should ever have to do: seal a demon inside his own child. Kushina Uzumaki lay dying nearby, her chakra chains, the only thing that had held the beast in place long enough for this moment. Everything about that night was supposed to follow the same path we all know from the original story, but this time something else was watching, something buried deep inside the blood of the Uzumaki clan itself. The Uzumaki were never ordinary shinobi. Their clan carried a hidden inheritance tied to the Shinigami itself, a fragment of power passed down through generations, dormant in most of them, but never truly gone. As Minato began the sealing technique, drawing on the Shinigami's strength to lock Kurama away, Kushina's blood, spilling onto the seal formula beneath them, reacted in a way no one could have predicted. It was not rejection, and it was not failure. It was recognition. The ancient fragment inside her blood recognized the technique being performed and responded to it, reaching out to reshape what the seal was actually building inside her son. Instead of a plain prison built only to contain the nine-tailed fox, the seal formed something far stranger, a hidden space inside Naruto's mind, shaped like a quiet council hall, standing right next to the cage that would hold Kurama. And because Minato was pouring his own soul into the technique to make the seal work, and because the Shinigami's power was drawing on the strength of the previous Hokage's bloodline that ran through the village's history, two more presences were pulled into that same hidden space. Hashirama Senju and Tobirama Senju, the first and second Hokage, found their souls anchored there as well, bound together with Minato inside the mind of a baby who hadn't even opened his eyes yet. None of them understood what had happened right away. Minato, watching his own life fade as the last of the seal locked into place, felt only relief that his son was safe and the village was safe. He did not know that a piece of his soul, along with two men he deeply respected, would remain behind, trapped but not lost. Somewhere in the space between life and death, three Hokage found themselves standing in a hall none of them recognized, and in the shadows of that hall, a massive cage held a nine-tailed fox who was just as confused as they were. For 4 years, nothing happened. Naruto grew up the way every version of him grows up in every story, alone, unwanted, whispered about by villagers who blamed a child for a monster's attack. He didn't know about the council hall in his mind, and the three souls trapped there didn't know how to reach him either. It took a spark of pure loneliness one particular night when a 4-year-old Naruto cried himself to sleep after being chased out of a shop for the connection to finally activate. His pain, raw and unfiltered, pulled his consciousness inward, and for the first time, little Naruto opened his eyes inside his own mindscape and saw 3 grown men staring back at him in shock. What followed was less like a normal training arrangement and more like a boy suddenly gaining 3 grandfathers who had nothing else to do but focus entirely on him. Hashirama, the warm and idealistic first Hokage, was the first to kneel down and speak gently to the frightened child, explaining who he was without overwhelming. Tobirama, more reserved and calculating, watched carefully for deciding this boy deserved the truth rather than comfort alone. Minato, recognizing his own son for the first time since the sealing, felt a mixture of joy and grief so powerful that even Kurama, chained in the corner, could sense it rolling through the mindscape like a wave. From that day forward, every time Naruto slept or meditated deeply enough, he entered that same hall and continued his lessons. Hashirama took charge of chakra control and taught him something most shinobi never truly learn: how to listen to living things. How chakra isn't just a weapon, but an extension of will and emotion. He was also the one who spent time calming Kurama down, approaching the fox not as a prisoner to be feared, but as a living being who had been used as a weapon his entire existence. Over months of quiet visits, Hashirama's calm presence softened Kurama's fury bit by bit, treating him almost like an old temperamental pet rather than an enemy. Tobirama's teaching style was the opposite of his brother's. Where Hashirama spoke of feelings and connection, Tobirama spoke of strategy, efficiency, and survival. He drilled Naruto on reading opponents, predicting movement, understanding the flow of a battlefield before a single kunai was thrown. It was Tobirama who first noticed that Naruto had inherited sharp instincts buried under years of neglect, instincts that simply needed structure to become dangerous. He treated the boy less like a fragile child child and more like a soldier who needed to be prepared for a world that would not be kind to him. And strangely enough, that honesty was exactly what Naruto needed to hear. Minato, meanwhile, focused on the one subject only he could teach, Fuing Jutsu, the art of sealing that ran through the Uzumaki and Namikaze bloodlines both. He taught Naruto the theory behind the very technique that had trapped him inside his own son's mind, an irony that was not lost on any of. Slowly, carefully, Minato passed down decades of sealing knowledge that had taken him a lifetime to master, condensing it for a boy who absorbed information faster than anyone he had ever taught. There was also something deeply personal in these lessons. A father given an impossible second chance, pouring everything he had into the only time he would ever get with his son. By the age of 7, Naruto had already discovered something the 3 Hokage hadn't anticipated. The shadow clone technique, usually reserved for combat or reconnaissance, became his greatest tool for learning. Because each clone that dispersed returned its memories to the original, Naruto realized he could create dozens of clones, send them to study separately inside his mindscape or practice separately in the real world, and absorb years of knowledge in a fraction of the time it would normally take. What should have taken a decade of training began compressing into months, and even Tobirama, a man who had personally invented the technique, admitted he had never considered using it quite this way. It was inevitable that someone would eventually notice something different about this boy. That someone turned out to be Hiruzen Saratobi, 3rd Hokage, who had quietly kept watch over Naruto ever since the sealing, carrying guilt for the burden placed on a child too young to understand it. One afternoon, during a rare visit, young Naruto casually repeated a phrase, a private code Tobirama had once used exclusively with his most trusted subordinates decades earlier, something Hiruzen himself had only heard a handful of times in his life. The old Hokage went pale, understanding immediately that this was not coincidence, and that whatever had happened during the sealing had left something extraordinary behind. From that moment, Hiruzen made a quiet decision. He stopped treating Naruto purely as a victim in need of protection and started treating him as a successor, being shaped by forces beyond his control. He didn't reveal what he knew to the council, understanding that such information in the wrong hands, particularly Danzo's, could be catastrophic. Instead, he adjusted small things behind the scenes. Which instructors reviewed Naruto's academy records, which missions eventually crossed his desk, and how closely he personally paid attention to a boy who was quietly becoming far more than anyone assumed. A year later, Naruto entered the academy, and this is where the story diverges sharply from anything the villagers or his classmates expect. Tobirama, ever the strategist, was the one who suggested the idea that would define Naruto's entire childhood performance: hide in plain sight. If Naruto showed his true skill this early, he would attract exactly the kind of attention neither Hiruzen nor the 3 Hokage wanted drawn to him, especially with Danzo Shimura already circling the Jinchuriki like a hawk, waiting for the right moment to claim him for root. So Naruto adopted the mask of the class fool, the loud, clumsy, attention-seeking troublemaker that the entire village already expected him to be. It worked almost too well. Teachers wrote him off as hopeless, classmates mocked him openly, and the villagers felt validated in their low opinion of the demon child. Naruto deliberately scored just well enough to avoid academic warning, but never well enough to be seen as promising, missing questions on purpose and pretending to struggle with concepts his clones had mastered years earlier. It was, in its own strange way, one of the hardest disciplines he had to learn, not showing power when he had spent every night training with 3 of the greatest shinobi to ever exist. Cracks in the disguise showed occasionally, especially during sparring matches where instincts sometimes overrode caution. There were moments where Naruto's reflexes moved faster than any academy student should be capable of, where his footwork echoed patterns too refined for a supposed failure. Sasuke Uchiha, sharp-eyed and naturally suspicious even as a child, was the first to notice these flashes. He couldn't explain why, but something about Naruto's carelessness felt performed, like watching an actor slightly miss his mark. Sasuke said nothing to anyone, choosing instead to quietly keep an eye on the one classmate who didn't fit the story everyone else believed. While his days were spent playing the fool, Naruto's nights told a completely different story. Away from prying eyes, he trained obsessively in Funjitsu, pushing beyond even what Minato had directly taught him, experimenting with
seal combinations that hadn't existed before. His clones spread across the village, and the Hokage's private archives Hiruzen quietly granted him access to, absorbing history, economics, and political theory from all 5 great shinobi nations. Tobirama pushed this particular education hard, arguing that a shinobi who understood the world's politics could avoid wars that a shinobi who only understood combat would stumble into blindly.
Meanwhile, the threat around Naruto only grew heavier. Danzo had never abandoned his interest in the Jinchuriki, viewing him as a weapon to be shaped for root rather than a person to be raised. What Danzo didn't know was that Tobirama, watching everything through Naruto's eyes and memories, had begun quietly compiling evidence of Root's activities, cross-referencing old records from his own era with patterns Naruto observed in the present. This wasn't something that could be solved overnight. Danzo was too connected, but a slow foundation was being built, one that would eventually give Hiruzen the leverage he needed. By the time Naruto turned 12, subtle changes had crept into his appearance and behavior that only the most observant would catch. He quietly abandoned the loud orange jumpsuit he was famous for in other timelines, not out of vanity, but because Tobirama pointed out that bright colors made terrible camouflage and terrible tactical sense for someone who might need to disappear into a crowd. His posture straightened slightly, his humor sharpened with a wit that mirrored Tobirama's dry sarcasm, and beneath the surface, 3 very different personalities were slowly blending into the person he was becoming. The graduation exam arrived, and Naruto performed exactly as calculated. Good enough to pass comfortably, never good enough to draw suspicion. Hiruzen, watching the results personally, made a decision that surprised even his advisors. He restructured the team placements that year, deviating from the standard formula, driven by something close to an experiment he wanted to run. Rather than pairing Naruto with the emotionally driven support of a teammate like Sakura Haruno, he placed her on a different team entirely, choosing instead to test how Naruto's hidden strategic mind would function alongside someone equally sharp, Shikamaru Nara. Team 7 was formed, with Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, and Shikamaru Nara, an unusual combination built around raw combat ability, tactical genius, and a wild card nobody but Hiruzen truly understood. Kakashi Hatake was assigned as their sensei, a man carrying his own burdens from the past, completely unaware that the loud blonde boy in front of him already understood more about ninja tactics, and in a strange twist neither of them realized yet, more about Kakashi's own late sensei Minato than Kakashi himself had ever been taught. The dynamic between them would end up far stranger than Kakashi expected, though it took him time to notice it. Their first true test as a team came sooner than expected, with a seemingly simple escort mission that led them to the land of waves, a country crushed under the tyranny of a businessman named Gato. Standing in their way was Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the hidden mist, a missing nin whose reputation alone was enough to make most genin freeze in fear. While Kakashi engaged Zabuza directly in a battle of experience in jutsu, Naruto did something none of his teammates expected. Instead of rushing in recklessly, he stood back, watching, analyzing, letting Tobirama's years of tactical drilling take over his thinking in real time. That night, while the rest of the team assumed Naruto was simply resting, dozens of his shadow clones scattered quietly through the region, gathering information on Gato's shipping routes, hidden accounts, and the true scale of his criminal operation. Naruto had realized something important. Zabuza wasn't fighting them out of loyalty to Gato. He was fighting because he was being paid, and a mercenary's loyalty could always be redirected with the right offer. It wasn't brute strength that would end this conflict cleanly. It was economics, and economics happened to be one of the subjects Naruto's clones had studied obsessive under Tobirama's insistence. Using knowledge Minato had once shared about hidden Uzumaki clan accounts, remnants of wealth left behind after Uzushio Kagure's destruction, Naruto approached Zabuza privately with an offer far more valuable than anything Gato was paying him. Zabuza, a man who lived by practicality rather than sentiment, accepted without much hesitation. A mercenary always follows the better price, and there was no better price on the table than what Naruto was offering. Together, quietly, and without unnecessary bloodshed, Gato's operation was dismantled from the inside, his hired thugs abandoned, and the tyrant himself eliminated without the chaos or casualties that had marked the original telling of this story. The people of the land of waves woke up free, crediting Zabuza's sudden change of heart and Kakashi's team for their liberation, never fully understanding that the true architect behind their freedom was a 12-year-old boy playing the role of village idiot back home. When the famous bridge connecting their land to the mainland was completed, it was named in honor of the heroes who had saved heroes who, in Naruto's case, would never receive the credit he actually deserved, and honestly, he preferred it that way. Kakashi, watching everything unfold, began to feel the first real crack in his assumptions about his loud, clumsy student. Sasuke's suspicions deepened as well, though not in a way that brought him closer to Naruto. If anything, watching Naruto operate on a level he couldn't fully explain only widened the gap Sasuke felt between them, and that gap bred a quiet, simmering resentment rather than admiration. Shikamaru, ever the pragmatist, simply sighed and muttered that being on a team with a hidden genius was troublesome, preferring to nap through the parts of the mission that didn't require his input. The team returned to Konoha successful, but carrying more questions among themselves than answers. Months passed before their next major test arrived, the Chunin Exams, a tournament designed to showcase the next generation of shinobi talent from across the 5 great nations. The written portion, infamous for testing information-gathering skills under pressure rather than raw knowledge, posed no real challenge for a boy who had spent years training clones specifically for exactly this kind of analytical thinking. The second stage, the infamous Forest of Death, was where things escalated far beyond simple exam pressure, becoming a genuine fight for survival against other Genin teams, and worse.
It was in that forest that Orochimaru made his appearance, drawn by his obsession with the Sharingan and his intent to place a cursed seal on Sasuke Uchiha. The confrontation that followed nearly cost the team everything until Orochimaru, sensing something unusual about Naruto, attempted to invade his mind directly, a tactic the Sannin had used successfully against countless opponents throughout his life. This time, instead of finding the mind of an ordinary genin, Orochimaru found himself standing face to face with Tobirama Senju's mental projection, a man who had once been his own teacher's rival and one of the most formidable shinobi Konoha had ever produced. The second Hokage did not hesitate. With little more than a glare and a burst of overwhelming killing intent projected through the mindscape, Tobirama shattered Orochimaru's mental incursion so violently that the Sannin physically recoiled in the real world, blood trickling from his nose. Orochimaru retreated from the encounter shaken and, in a strange way, fascinated. Whatever secret Naruto was hiding had just become his newest obsession, layering an entirely new threat onto the boy's already complicated existence. He would remember this encounter for a long time, and it would shape his interest in Naruto for years to come.
Despite the chaos, Team 7 survived the forest and advanced toward the preliminary rounds, where fighters would be narrowed down before the final tournament. Naruto's opponent turned out to be Neji Hyuga, a prodigy from the Hyuga clan's branch family, who had built his entire worldview around the concept of predetermined fate, using his Byakugan to see and dismiss opponents before a fight even truly began. Where the original story saw a long, emotional battle about believing in yourself despite fate, this version played out very differently, shaped entirely by the tactical mind Tobirama had spent years sharpening. Rather than trading speeches about destiny, Naruto simply exploited what he knew: detailed anatomical knowledge of the Hyuga clan's chakra points, information his clones had studied specifically in preparation for a tournament where facing a Hyuga was statistically likely. He shut down Neji's chakra flow with precision that left no room for a comeback, ending the fight quickly and without unnecessary theatrics. The crowd, expecting to watch the village's supposed failure get humiliated, sat in stunned silence instead, watching the loser of the academy reveal a version of himself nobody had prepared for. Hiruzen, watching from the Hokage's box, allowed himself a small private smile. His quiet experiment, years in the making, was finally proving itself, though the cost of what came next would be more than he ever wanted to pay. Naruto advanced comfortably to the final round of the tournament, but before that final match could even begin, the day of the finals became something far darker. Orochimaru's long-planned invasion of Konoha, disguised beneath the cover of the exam itself. The invasion tore through the village, and at its heart stood Hiruzen Sarutobi, forced to face his own former student in a battle that would end his life. The third Hokage fought with everything he had, sacrificing himself to protect the village and and seal away a portion of Orochimaru's power, dying not as a symbol, but as a man who had spent his final years quietly protecting a boy he had come to see almost as a grandson. For Naruto, the loss cut deeper than almost anyone realized. Hiruzen had been the first adult outside his mindscape to believe in him unconditionally without needing proof.
Inside his mind, the three Hokage observed the tragedy in complete silence, none of them offering hollow comfort, understanding that some grief simply needs to be felt rather than fixed. Weeks after the invasion, with Konoha reeling from the loss of its leader, Tsunade Senju returned to the village and was persuaded to take up the mantle of 5th Hokage, bringing with her decades of medical expertise the village desperately needed. It was during this uncertain period that Orochimaru made his next move, sending his agents to offer Sasuke Uchiha the one thing he desired most, the power to finally kill his brother. Sasuke, consumed by years of resentment and a growing inferiority complex around Naruto's hidden abilities, made the decision to abandon Konoha in pursuit of that power. But this time, Naruto learned of the plan almost immediately, his network of clones and information-gathering habits leaving very little that happened in the village outside his awareness. Using the Hiraishin technique Minato had painstakingly taught him over the years, Naruto closed the distance in moments, catching up to Sasuke long before he could slip beyond Konoha's reach.
Their confrontation took place at the Valley of the End, a location steeped in symbolic history from the original rivalry between Hashirama and Madara centuries earlier. A fitting stage, though neither boy fully appreciated the irony at the time. Sasuke fought with the desperate fury of someone convinced this was his only path forward, throwing everything he had into the battle. Naruto, in contrast, never called upon Kurama's power at all, relying entirely on the skills built through years of training under three of history's greatest shinobi, proving that raw strength wasn't the only measure of what made someone dangerous. Following the tactical discipline Tobirama had instilled in him since childhood, Naruto ended the fight efficiently, immobilizing Sasuke without unnecessary destruction and sealing away enough of his chakra to prevent an escape. He carried his unconscious teammate back toward Konoha, though the moment carried none of the emotional warmth their friendship might have held in another timeline. Naruto brought him back because Konoha needed him, a valuable asset too dangerous to lose to Orochimaru, not purely out of the friendship the two of them had never fully built. For this mission alone, the village recognized an achievement too significant to ignore, promoting 13-year-old Naruto directly to the rank of Jonin, a decision that stunned the council almost as much as the mission itself had. The following 2 years saw Naruto travel and train under Jiraiya, the last living member of the legendary Sani, who, unaware of the full scope of what his student had already learned, still managed to add valuable insight into sealing theory and the broader shinobi world beyond the village walls. During this period, Naruto uncovered growing intelligence about Akatsuki, the shadowy organization hunting Jinchuriki across the nations, and began quietly preparing countermeasures far earlier than in the original timeline. His travels also led him to 2 other surviving members of the nearly extinct Uzumaki clan, Karin, a cousin with sensory abilities, and Nagato, a man whose life had been shaped by tragedy and Akatsuki's ideology in equal measure. Bringing them into contact with Konoha wasn't easy, and it took careful diplomacy, patience, and Nagato's own weariness with the path Akatsuki had set him on. But slowly, the foundation for restoring the Uzumaki clan's presence in the shinobi world began to take shape. Around the same time, years of quiet evidence gathering finally paid off. Tobirama's carefully assembled case against Danzo, filtered through Naruto's observations and cross-reference with Konoha's own records, gave Tsunade and the surviving elders enough justification to finally remove Danzo and dismantle Root's most dangerous operations, closing a threat that had loomed over Naruto since infancy. With Danzo gone and his own reputation quietly growing among the village's inner circle, Naruto assumed an unusual role that no one outside a small trusted group knew about, acting as Tsunade's unofficial shadow advisor, feeding her strategic insight shaped by 3 lifetimes of leadership experience compressed into one young man's mind. He rarely appeared in council meetings himself, preferring to remain in the background exactly as Tobirama had trained him to, influencing major decisions through Tsunade rather than seeking credit credit or position for himself. It was a strange, quiet kind of power, one built on trust rather than title. Then came the war that no amount of preparation could fully soften. The Fourth Great Shinobi War, ignited by Madara Uchiha's return and his plan to capture every tailed beast in existence. The battlefield became something almost unimaginable when Edo Tensei, the forbidden reanimation technique, brought fallen shinobi back to fight once more, and among the souls pulled from the afterlife to stand against Konoha's enemies were the very three men who had shaped Naruto's entire life from inside his own mind. For the first time, Hashirama, Tobirama, and Minato stood beside him not as spirits guiding him from within, but as physical allies fighting at his side on equal footing. It should have been a moment of triumph. Three legendary Hokage and their student finally united in battle. But the war brought a threat even older and more dangerous than Madara himself. Kaguya Otsutsuki, the ancient progenitor of chakra, was awakened through Madara's manipulation of the Ten Tails, unleashing power that dwarfed everything the shinobi world had faced before. The scale of the threat forced Naruto into a position no amount of training could have fully prepared him for, a choice that would define not just the outcome of the war, but the rest of his life. Deep inside his mind, standing once more in the same hall where his training had begun so many years earlier, Naruto faced an impossible decision. The forbidden technique capable of giving him the strength needed to seal Kaguya required drawing directly on the very souls that had raised him, consuming the last of what remained of Hashirama, Tobirama, and Minato to fuel a power great enough to end the threat permanently. It was not a decision made lightly, and it was not one any of the three men allowed him to agonize over for long, because each of them, in their own way, had already accepted what this moment might cost. Hashirama was the first to step forward, his expression carrying the same warmth he had shown Naruto since the very beginning, telling him without a trace of fear that the will of fire he had spent his life building would live on regardless of what happened to him personally. Tobirama followed with a simple, quiet nod, the kind of understated approval that meant more coming from him than any lengthy speech ever could. His student, in every way that mattered, had surpassed the teacher. Minato knelt beside his son one final time, telling him plainly how proud he was, not just of the shinobi Naruto had become, but of the person underneath all that training before dissolving into golden light alongside his mentor. With the combined power of three Hokage burned into his own chakra, Naruto sealed Kaguya Otsutsuki permanently, ending a threat that could have unraveled the entire shinobi world. The war ended not with him alone claiming victory, but with the quiet, aching knowledge that the price of that victory had been the very people who made him who he was. In the aftermath, as the nations began to rebuild and celebrate the end of a war that had cost so many lives, Naruto stood among the survivors, carrying a weight none of them could fully understand. Naruto Uzumaki eventually rose to become the seventh Hokage, exactly as history remembers him, a hero, a symbol of hope, the boy once dismissed as the village fool who ultimately saved the entire shinobi world. On the day of his inauguration, the entire village chanted his name. Children pointed at him with wide, admiring smiles, and the very people who once crossed the street to avoid him now bowed their heads in respect. From the outside, it looked like the perfect ending to an underdog story, a lonely child who grew up to become the greatest hero his world had ever known. But beneath that victory lay a quieter, heavier truth that only Naruto himself carried. For the first time since he was a 4-year-old boy crying alone in his apartment, there was no hall left in his mind to retreat to, no grandfather figures waiting with lessons or quiet comfort, no council of Hokage watching over him within his seal. The three voices that had slept woken beside him for most of his life had gone silent forever, and that silence echoed louder than any applause the village could offer him. At night, when the Hokage tower emptied and the village finally went quiet, Naruto would sit alone at his desk and search out of habit for that old familiar space where he used to escape as a child. There was nothing there anymore. No warmth from Hashirama, Hashirama, no sharp, steady advice from Tobirama, no voice calling him son the way only Minato ever had. Everything he had become, he built on a foundation given by three people he could never fully explain to anyone else, and the people who understood him best now lived only in memory. And yet, whenever Naruto looked out from the tower window at the village below, children laughing, new genin graduating from the very academy he once fooled everyone in, he felt a small, quiet comfort settle over him. Hashirama's will of fire lived on in every mission the village carried out with compassion. Tobirama's strategic mind lived on in the careful decisions that kept Konoha safe, and Minato's dream of a village where no child had to grow up afraid had finally come true. They themselves were gone, but everything they had given him remained inside him, and now, through him, inside the entire village.
That was the story in the end. A boy shaped by three legendary Hokage into a hero the world would never forget. A hero who carried his greatest victory alongside his deepest loneliness. Naruto gained everything they taught him to become, but the one thing he wanted most, having them beside him, was gone forever. And maybe that's the truest lesson in any hero's journey. Victory doesn't always arrive wrapped in joy. Sometimes it arrives wrapped in silence.
Hey guys, what's up? I hope you had liked this video. If you liked it, don't forget to like or subscribe. It means a lot to me. Thank you. Bye.